think those officers were the real criminals. Why? Because I have read the books written by the Pakistani army generals, like General Raja Khadam, who was here in Dhaka, and he wrote that General Niazi, who was a senior officer to him, he said that I will change the race of these Bengalis through my soldiers.
That's true.
So there is evidence available against these people. Why don't you release the names of these people? Why you are reluctant to start a process, legal process to try these Pakistan army officers who are still alive?
Well, definitely we will try Pakistanis who are responsible for committing
There are some Pakistanis also. Of course. That's why you must set an example of a fair and free trial, so that we in Pakistan should also make a demand that
they should
the
be
Pakistan
tried.
army officers
Should be tried.
who are responsible for the genocide should also be tried.
Yes, thank you.
Similarly, on the Bangladeshi side, I have, of course, spoken to many people who were involved, for all the people who were traumatized and suffered in that conflict. And I think that is really the duty of the international bodies, even at this late stage. I'm Sharmila Bose from the University of Oxford. This book is a chronicling at the grassroots level through the investigation of detailed incidents on the ground during the 1971 conflict, which tries through those detailed incidents and the humanizing of the war to try to learn something about what the conflict was about. In the past 40 years, both countries, and India also in its way, have indulged in nationalist mythology building. And there hasn't been enough of dispassionate, systematic research on this conflict. And so, because so many of us have grown up with these narratives, and I myself grew up with the Indo-Bangladeshi dominant narrative, I myself did not know when I started this research that I would hear a different story. I didn't know that. When I started the research, I thought, because this is a very poorly documented conflict, that I would be filling in the details and strengthening the documentation of this conflict. It's only after I started doing the research I found that what people were telling me, the story that was emerging from the ground, was rather different from the dominant narrative that I had grown up with. And I had difficulty accepting that myself, so I understand. With regard to the Pakistan Army, which is the instrument of state policy for much of the year, though not in all of the year, only after March 25th is it the instrument of state policy, and my book starts earlier than that. The Army's actions are a complex phenomenon. I mean, there were people who were trying to fight a counter-insurgency in very difficult circumstances as best they could, following some code of conduct of war. There were many honorable people there as well who may not have agreed even with their own country's policies, but their duty was to do what they had been sent to do.
Why we start operations here and there in Pakistan? Because there was no accountability of those people who killed innocent people in 1971.
In Bangladesh, once East Pakistan, not a day has gone by without horrible reprisals against people who supported the Pakistani government. There have been individual killings, and there have been massacres. And here is a film of a rally in Dhaka made last Friday at which men were incited to kill and did kill. In Dhaka that day, there was a huge rally. Thousands of people listening as speakers whipped them up and urged them to take revenge on their oppressors. As they listened, they were protected by their own liberation forces, the Mukti Bahini irregulars. The oppressors, the speakers said, were those who accepted guns from the Indians and fought with them. They were local militiamen who, they said, were responsible for killing, raping, and stealing from the people of Bangladesh. Then the Mukti Bahini, the liberation soldiers, went to work on the prisoners, prodding them with rifle butts, forcing them to the ground. Here is what happened to one prisoner. He was kicked and beaten. His hair was pulled as he was dragged to his knees. He pleaded for mercy, but there was none. The soldiers beat him and beat him and beat him, until finally they killed him.
After 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 40 years, one day they will be exposed and they will be humiliated and they will be forced to say sorry.
Bangladesh war. To what extent did you win because the Pakistan military leadership proved to be incompetent? For instance, I gather they had no fallback strategy to defend Dhaka.
No, it's not true. The Pakistan army in East Pakistan fought very gallantly, but they had no chance. They were 1,000 miles away from their base. I'd had 8 or 9 months to make my preparations. I'd got a superiority of almost 50 to 1. They just had no chance, but they fought very gallantly.
All these professors and all these beautiful civil rights defenders, they are instrumental in the process of the subversion only to destabilize the nation. In Bangladesh, it was nothing with grassroots. Most of the Awami League party members, Awami League means People's Party, were trained in Moscow in the high party school. Most of the Mukti Fauj leaders, Mukti Fauj in Bengali means People's Army, same as SWAPO and all kind of liberation armies all over the world, the same bunch of useful idiots. They were trained at Lumumba University and various centers of the KGB in Simferopol, in Crimea, and in Tashkent. So when I saw that Indian territory is being used as a jumping board to destroy East Pakistan, I saw myself thousands of so-called students traveling through India to East Pakistan, through the territory of India, and Indian government pretended not to see what's going on.